I'm Kevin Solway for Men of the Infinite, and this video is a continuation of a series of videos I've been making about issues in the world, so to speak. Today's topic is economics, and I'm going to cast a light on two common economic absurdities, just in case you were under the illusion that there's anything sane about economics. By now, many of you will already be aware that there's not much sense to be found in the stock market or in banking, but we'll see that economics generally is no different. The first crazy thing we'll look at is hyperinflation, which happens periodically in all sorts of countries around the world, largely because human beings lack the ability to learn from history. In hyperinflation, the prices of goods rise rapidly because the currency is losing its value just as rapidly. For example, a loaf of bread might cost you $10 million today, but tomorrow it might cost $20 million. Currency generally loses its value because the government is spending a lot more money than it's taking in taxes, and so it's resorted to printing money or just creating the money digitally in your bank account. But the more money the government creates out of thin air, the less people trust it, and so its value decreases, and then the government needs to print more and more money in a vicious circle. Normally what happens during these times is that the rich, educated people buy the furniture and the possessions and the homes of the poor people for large amounts of cash, and the poor, uneducated people think they're getting a good deal out of it. But after a couple of weeks, the cash becomes worthless and they're left without anything at all. Eventually the whole disaster just collapses in a heap till the next time people feel like doing it all over again.
If we could, for a moment, move on to the subject of fiscal policy.
Fiscal policy?
Yes.
How can you have money if none of you actually produce anything? It doesn't grow on trees,
Well,
you know.
if you would allow me to continue.
Continue.
Yeah, since we decided a few weeks ago to adopt leaves as legal tender, we have, of course, all become immensely rich.
Yes,
Really?
really?
Wonderful and about
But we have also run into a small inflation problem on account of the high level of leaf availability, which means that I gather the current going rate has something like 3 major deciduous forests buying 1 ship's peanuts. So, in order to obviate this problem and effectively revalue the leaf, we are about to embark on an extensive defoliation campaign and, burn down all the forests. I think that's a sensible move, don't you?
That makes economic...
The second issue I want to examine is the concentration of wealth. Here's a typical pie chart of the distribution of net worth. As you can see, the top 5% of the population on the right and bottom parts of the chart own more than half of the total wealth, and the top 1% of the population owns more than 1/3 of the total wealth. You'll note at the very top of the chart, and disappearing into insignificance, that the poorest 40% of the population only own 0.2% of the total wealth. Now, provided there's an abundant supply of the essentials for life, and I mean things like food, education, healthcare and housing, then everything goes smoothly and everyone's happy. The rich get what they want and the poor get enough to survive. But here's the killer. What happens when there's a shortage of supply? For example, what happens when there's a shortage of housing or a shortage of food? Then the price of goods will increase according to the law of supply and demand. The super rich, of course, will be able to afford virtually any price at all. So if it costs $10 million for a standard house or $1,000 for a loaf of bread, then from their perspective, these prices are almost nothing at all. Yet to a poor person, these prices are completely unaffordable. So the poor will not only be priced out of the market, but quite possibly also out of life itself. Then there's the issue of how people become rich. And the fact is that most of the wealth of wealthy people is inherited and isn't worked for. It's a well-known fact that money by itself can make money. So if you have a lot of money, then you don't need to do any work whatsoever. You can put your money in an interest-earning account and live off the interest. Or you can buy a lot of houses and rent them out to poor people who can't afford to buy a house because you've bid up the price of houses to a point beyond their reach. And it's easy to keep money once you've got a lot of it, partly because in countries like the United States, it's not wealth that's taxed, but only income. So someone like Warren Buffett, with an estimated net worth of $62 billion, has a taxable income which is only 0.1% of his total net worth. And because most of his income is capital gains, he pays a lower rate of tax than a regular working person. Now, there's nothing inherently wrong with people having a lot of wealth, provided that they do something productive with it and use it for the benefit of the society which ultimately gave it to them. But I don't think that we've, as a species, quite evolved to that level.
The point is, ladies and gentlemen, that greed, for lack of a better word, is good. Greed is right. Greed works. Greed clarifies, cuts through, and captures.